Look at the flight line. You see the sleek, razor-thin silhouettes of fifth-generation stealth fighters, machines that cost more than small countries. Aircraft covered in expensive, fragile, radar-absorbent materials designed to slip through enemy air defenses without ever being seen. They are masterpieces of digital wizardry. Then you see it, the A-10 Thunderbolt II. It looks like a mistake. It looks like an aeronautical engineer bolted a titanium bathtub and a set of massive straight wings to a 30mm rotary cannon and forgot to check the math. It is slow, it is loud, it is brutally analog in an increasingly digital world. For 20 years, the United States Air Force has been trying to hold a funeral for this plane, and for 20 years, the Warthog has violently kicked its way out of the grave. As of May 2026, the official word is out. The Air Force is keeping the A-10 flying through 2030. The reversal comes after a blunt realization: the future isn't ready yet. This isn't a fighter. It is an airborne industrial tool designed to survive the kind of molecular violence that would vaporize a billion-dollar stealth jet in seconds. Today, we are tearing apart the A-10 Warthog. We are performing a deep tissue forensic analysis on the titanium armor, the physics of a gun that breaks the laws of propulsion, and the exact reasons why a 50-year-old airframe is currently deployed to hunt Iranian fast attack boats in the Strait of Hormuz. Let's start the autopsy on the Warthog's epidermis. Most modern jets rely on baked-in composites to hide from the electromagnetic spectrum. The A-10 doesn't hide, it wears the fight. The pilot sits inside a 1,200-pound titanium bathtub. This armor ranges from half an inch to an inch and a half thick. It forms a completely enclosed protective shell around the cockpit and the vital flight control systems. It is specifically designed to deflect 23mm armor-piercing, high-explosive incendiary rounds. If a stealth fighter takes a 23mm round to the canopy, the mission is over. The pilot is dead. The aircraft is a multi-million-dollar fireball. If an A-10 takes that same round, the pilot hears a loud metallic ping, then they bank hard and return fire. But the survivability goes far beyond the cockpit walls. Look at the engines. The twin General Electric TF-34 turbofans are not buried inside the fuselage. They are mounted high and wide on the rear of the aircraft. This isn't an aesthetic accident. This placement serves multiple critical forensic purposes for a close air support platform. First, the massive horizontal tail stabilizers physically block the thermal exhaust signature from heat-seeking missiles fired from the ground below. It acts as an infrared shield. Second, the high placement prevents the engines from ingesting dirt and rocks when operating from austere, unpaved forward operating bases near the front lines. Finally, consider catastrophic damage. If one engine takes a direct hit from a surface-to-air missile and shrapnel explodes outward, the massive main fuselage sits directly between the dead engine and the surviving one. The A-10 can fly, fight, and land perfectly fine on a single engine. Now, let's examine the nervous system. Modern fifth-generation jets are entirely fly-by-wire. If an F-35 loses total electrical power, it becomes a falling brick. The A-10 is fundamentally different. It features redundant hydraulic flight control systems. If the primary hydraulic line is severed, the secondary system instantly takes over. If the secondary system bleeds out, the pilot is still not dead. They can engage manual reversion. This cuts out the hydraulics entirely. The pilot is now flying a 30,000-pound combat aircraft using a direct physical connection of steel cables and pulleys. It requires immense, exhausting physical strength to move the stick in this mode, but it brings the pilot home. A machine that survives is utterly useless if it cannot kill. This brings us to the core musculature of the A-10, the GAU-8A Avenger 30mm rotary cannon. This isn't a gun mounted on a plane, it is a plane built around a gun. The actual gun, complete with its linkless feed system, is over 19 feet long. It weighs 4,000 pounds when fully loaded. Because the gun is so large and heavy, the front landing gear had to be offset to the right just to make room for the firing barrel. When the pilot pulls the trigger, the GAU-8A fires at a staggering 3,900 rounds per minute.
The recoil generated by this weapon is roughly 10,000 pounds of force. That is slightly more thrust than one of the A-10's own engines produces at maximum power. When the gun fires, the actual aircraft is literally slowed down in mid-air. The entire airframe violently shudders under the mechanical stress. Let's autopsy the ammunition. The A-10 fires PGU-14B depleted uranium armor-piercing incendiary rounds. Depleted uranium is incredibly dense. When it strikes a heavily armored target like a main battle tank, the kinetic energy transfer is staggering. The round doesn't just punch a hole, it causes the interior of the tank's armor to undergo massive spalling, sending a high-velocity shotgun blast of lethal metal fragments directly into the crew compartment. Furthermore, the uranium dust spontaneously ignites at thousands of degrees. It burns the crew alive, while the spalling shreds them. It is a terrifying clinical execution of physics. But the true terror is psychological. The rounds travel at nearly Mach 3. They travel significantly faster than the speed of sound. If you are an enemy combatant on the ground, you do not hear the gun fire. The target is hit, the armor is breached, and the explosive destruction happens first. Only a few seconds later does the sound of the gun actually catch up to the battlefield.
The BRRRR. It sounds like the sky itself is being ripped in half. It is the audio signature of absolute dominance. For American ground troops, it is the sound of salvation. For the enemy, it is the last sound they will ever hear. So why has the Air Force been trying to destroy this aircraft? For years, planners have coldly argued that the A-10 cannot survive in airspace defended by modern, integrated air defenses. They argued that a slow, non-stealth aircraft is a liability against modern hypersonic missiles. They wanted the maintenance money diverted to buy more F-35s. They tried to aggressively retire the fleet in 2015. Congress blocked them. They tried again in 2022, blocked again. But by early 2026, it looked like they had finally succeeded. The final class of A-10 pilots graduated in April. The Air Force A-10 demonstration team flew its final show. The brass was actively preparing the coffin. But then, the reality of combat intervened. The answer to the Warthog's survival is found in the volatile waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Under Operation Epic Fury, a massive U.S. campaign against Iranian aggression, the A-10 has found a new, brutally effective niche. The Iranian IRGC Navy does not rely on massive, slow-moving destroyers. They rely on swarms of fast-attack watercraft. These are small, agile boats armed with heavy machine guns or missiles. High-speed stealth jets heavily struggle to visually track these tiny surface targets at extreme low altitudes. A multi-million-dollar jet screaming past the ocean surface at Mach 1.5 simply doesn't have the loiter time or the visual acquisition window to deal with 20 erratic speedboats. But for an A-10 pilot loitering lazily at 300 knots, it is a turkey shoot. The A-10's massive straight wings give it an incredibly tight turning radius. It can circle a U.S. Navy littoral combat ship for hours, watching the water. When an Iranian mine layer breaks cover, the A-10 strikes. It isn't just the rotary cannon doing the killing anymore. The 2026 A-10 is a hybrid beast. It is carrying APKWS laser-guided rockets to plink small boats at range. Crucially, it also carries AIM-9M sidewinders. The A-10 has evolved into a dedicated drone killer. It uses its slow speed and excellent visibility to intercept Iranian one-way attack drones before they can reach vulnerable U.S. bases. We've seen A-10s returning from combat missions with drone kill markings painted directly on their noses. The Phoenix is the ghost of the future. The A-10 is the ghost of the industrial age. One hides from the world. The other forces the world to hide from it. There is another forensic reality keeping the A-10 alive. It is a mission the Air Force brass consistently refuses to talk about: Combat Search and Rescue, the CSAR mission. When an American pilot is shot down behind enemy lines, the military sends a rescue force. This operation is directed by a highly trained pilot under the call sign Sandy 1. For nearly 50 years, the A-10 has performed this role. The Sandy 1 commander is the on-scene boss. They coordinate helicopters, suppress ground fire, and orbit directly over the downed pilot to protect them. This requires an aircraft that can fly extremely low, stay on station for hours, and absorb a massive amount of anti-aircraft fire. You cannot perform this mission in a delicate stealth fighter. It fundamentally lacks the fuel for extended loiter time, and most importantly, it absolutely cannot take a direct hit from a shoulder-fired missile and keep flying. Until the Pentagon figures out how to rescue pilots without relying on the titanium bathtub, the A-10 simply cannot be allowed to die. Let's look at the financial forensics. An F-35 squadron costs roughly $740 million a year. The A-10 is a bargain, but the Air Force hates paying for it. They argue the funds spent maintaining 50-year-old wings should be diverted to the Next Generation Air Dominance program. They were ready to put the final nail in the coffin in 2025. But Operation Epic Fury fiercely demanded close air support. High-definition footage has circulated of A-10s conducting devastating strafing runs on militia bases in Al-Anbar province. The Pentagon had to face the cold reality. High-end stealth fighters are built for a massive theoretical war against China. But right now, the United States is fighting a gritty, low-altitude war in the Middle East, and for that environment, you absolutely need the Warthog. The Air Force brass fates the A-10 because it doesn't look good on a spreadsheet. It isn't stealthy, it isn't fast, it is a heavy, battered relic of the Cold War. But war is not a spreadsheet. War is visceral. War is an 18-year-old kid on the ground, pinned down by heavy machine gun fire, aggressively bleeding into the dirt, begging the sky to save him. An F-35 dropping a GPS-guided bomb from 30,000 feet is effective, but it doesn't give that kid any real hope. He never sees the plane. He never hears the engine. It is a sterile, detached form of combat. An A-10 screaming in at 100 feet is entirely different. It takes hits, it sheds metal, it banks hard and shreds the tree line with its 30mm cannon. The pilot is looking out the canopy, visually identifying the enemy with their own human eyes. The A-10 survives because it is the only aircraft that fundamentally cares about the infantry. The ground troops have aggressively disagreed with any attempt to retire it. The infantry and special operations community fiercely want the Warthog to stay. The generals want stealth. In the end, blood and dirt are currently winning the argument. I look at the A-10 and I see the exact opposite of the Phoenix 57. The future of warfare is algorithms. It is highly autonomous drones. That is the inevitable reality of the next decade. But today, the Strait of Hormuz isn't being held by sterile algorithms. It is being held by a titanium bathtub. The A-10 is undeniably a dying breed. The physical airframes are tired. The critical logistics chains are slowly shutting down. By 2030, this temporary combat extension will finally end. The hardened hangars will go quiet. The F-35 will ultimately take over, and the skies will become clean, silent, and digital. But until that exact day comes, the ghost of the industrial age still firmly owns the dirt. Obsolescence is a lie invented by men who sit in air-conditioned rooms who have never been shot at. The A-10 continually refuses to die because the men bleeding on the ground refuse to let it go. It is 2026. The world is changing, but as long as there is a soldier in a hole needing help, there will be a place for the most violent sound in the history of aviation. This is James. You are watching The Hidden Muster. We will see you on the next deep dive.